and we'll start. So let's pray. So Father, just help me to be able to stay focused on what I need to say. Help me not to go on any rabbit trails. There's too much information to do that. But Lord, just help me to understand what you want this class to be. And I just pray for everyone here to really just get a good grip on the basic information about Armageddon and about Revelation. And Father, I pray that you would also bless those who might be on their way and keep them safe. And Father, I praise you for your good work and all that you're doing in our lives. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Okay, so we're just going to kind of briefly talk about this. So we have the cross here. Jesus dies on the cross. And then we're going to organize it this way. 3 days. All right, and then he comes back. 40 days between the cross and when Jesus ascends. This is Acts chapter 1. And then 10 days between Jesus' ascension and the day of Pentecost. Now, this will all show up, so I'm not gonna talk too much about it, but this is a good understanding of what's happening, and all of this is going to be found in Leviticus 23, 5 through 14. And this is the transition period from the old covenant to the new covenant. So, don't want to belabor this too much, but up to the cross, or really up until this point, everything is still a part of the old covenant. They're under the law. They're still functioning, good Jewish people, okay? This transition period is taking it from Passover to Pentecost, and then after that, we now begin this time of the Gentiles. Now it starts with, of course, the Jews, because that's Romans chapter 1, to the Jew first, 1:16 and 17, to the Jew first, and also to the Greek. But this becomes the church age. And so you can get that information that you want on that. Now, this period here is called the 70th week of Daniel. And this is the period of time after the rapture and before the second coming. And this is divided up into 3.5 years, or 3.5 days and 3.5 days, whatever that, that's a total of 7 years.
So that's like 70th.
70th week of Daniel. Okay, and that information will be in on this chart. The thing that is interesting to me about this, and you will see this, is that this is when I believe, and I've got some references to that. This is also, I'll change colors here, the period of time when the marriage supper of the Lamb occurs. So in the 70th week, it's also the marriage supper of the Lamb. Okay, and the thing that makes that important is that the church is not Israel. There are different groups, there's different raptures, different things that are happening here. So all that additional information is going to be in there. And then we have the second coming. This is in chapter 19, and this is where we're going to be really focusing mainly today, is the second coming of Christ. the ending of the day of the Lord. When Jesus comes down, this ends that day. That day comes to an end. And then we have the 1,000-year reign. And this is when Christ brings judgment. Christ's judgment happens here. And then at the end of that, you're going to have the white throne judgment. And this is where maybe there's a lot of controversy on the battle of Gog and Magog, but it's at this point where we have the pit where they are thrown into, and the lake of fire is where we're trying to get to. They come out of the pit, go here, and go into the lake of fire. At this point, these are those who are lost, who are not going to find salvation. Okay, so they're being resurrected to death. So there's resurrection to life. There is the first resurrection to life, and then there is another resurrection that happens here in chapter 20, right? And then there is a resurrection to death. There's also the resurrection of the two witnesses. Okay, so there's a lot of little resurrections going on everywhere. So, but this is the only one that is resurrection unto death. So I'm going to hand you this. I may refer back to that, but you guys will get a copy of that.
What is the things underneath? The number, oh, there, what are those symbols on?
This,
No.
the lake of
that.
fire.
That's the
Lake-
lake of fire. and
Lake
the
of
thing
fire.
next to Is the pit. Okay.
Yeah, the pit that come out of the pit into the lake of fire. So is it the point of all that is that when a person, when you die, if you're not in the Lord, you are going to go to Hades. Of course, that's gone now, right? You're going to be on the hot side only of Hades. And then you're going to be waiting there until you're in your final judgment. So, okay, so now this is the campaign of Armageddon. Now I have so much notes here, but this is the map that you guys are going to get. Now, he gives a list of things that he thinks. This is Dr. Arnold Fruchtenbaum, Aerial Ministries.
What's his last name?
Dr. Arnold Fruchtenbaum,
Fruchtenbaum.
Fruitenbaum. Aerial Ministries. I really recommend Aerial Ministries. He's Messianic Jew. It's an amazing ministry. Has tons and tons and tons and tons of information.
What's it called?
Aerial, ARIEL, Aerial Ministries. What I did on my phone. There's something else. Aerial Ministries has got a little Star of David like this.
Oh, okay.
The other guy that I recommend is a guy named Mottel, M-O-T-T-E-L, Ballaston, B-A-L-E-S-T-O-N. He is a Messianic Jew, and he has a very good website. And then the other thing is this. This is the Yeshua, the Chabad. This is the complete Jewish Bible. And what's great about this is that it has, let me see, learning and values. You can take it and get the text and writings, all of the Jewish, the Tanakh, the Jewish prayers, the Talmud, all of that. This is a really good site if you want to get into real in-depth kind of stuff, but it's on my phone if anybody wants that. So those are the three company things I use.
And we have Chabad. I put it on the
Okay.
website.
Yeah.
That's good. So those are really good to have and to know about. But what we're going to talk now is this. Okay. So tell me what you guys have learned about Armageddon, or what do we know about Armageddon? What happens? How is it prepared? What's the first thing that happens?
The Euphrates River dries up.
Okay. So this is Revelation 16:12. So the Euphrates. That's the very first thing that happens. Now, we're in chapter 16 of Revelation there. And so what is the next thing why does that have to happen, by the way? Why, this is the Euphrates, it's right here, coming down through Babylon. Why does that have to happen?
Easy access
Okay.
from the kings of the
Okay.
east.
Okay, so there's different groups of kings, and these are the four great world powers that we're talking about. This is Zechariah 12 through 14, and there's a bunch of different verses. You're gonna get it, but we just want to think about it. There's a 10-king federation. And then there's also a northern federation. Now, it's believed that this is Russia, and I looked up, let me see what it said here, when I looked at that. This is related to Ezekiel 38 and 39. And some people believe that this is part of also the Battle of Gog, right? And Magog, this is going on, if this happens before or after. Well, obviously, the Battle of Gog and Magog, when is that supposed to happen? It's at the end of the 1,000-year reign is when that's supposed to happen, okay? And that's how it appears. There's a lot of controversy on that. But the Northern Federation is going to come down. Well, we don't know exactly of these four groups, these four great world powers. You know, this obviously, if the Euphrates is dried out and it becomes a highway, it's a big river, so it'd be very easy to come down the Euphrates and gather and send all of your tanks. Okay, so then we have the Northern Federation, then we have the kings of the East. And then we have the kings of the South. And then we also have the Lord and his armies, okay? So these 10 kingdoms are the fourth kingdom, or the final kingdom. These are the ones that follow the Antichrist, okay? Okay. So the first thing is they're prepping for war. So these great world powers are getting, and I've got it 1, 2, 3, 4, kings of the East and South. So these guys are getting ready to go. What has to happen according to Revelation 16 as the river dries up, and then what has to happen?
Assemble in the valley of Jezreel.
Okay, but he does something else before that. Revelation 16. I would turn to 16 myself. See, that would be so much more helpful if I do that.
Oh, are you talking about the bowl? And that's when the river dried up.
Okay, and then what happens?
Then the frogs.
Ah, there you go. So they send out what?
There's 3 frogs. To
One
just,
came out of the mouth of the dragon.
Okay, so 3
Unclean
Unclean
spirits.
okay, so 3 demons send out unclean spirits. And what's the point of doing that?
to deceive.
Now think about where we're at with all the things that have happened. We're right here at this end. This is Revelation 19 that we're going to be talking about. That's Armageddon. But we're kind of right here in this little portion right here, getting ready. This would be probably the sixth bowl, right? Because they've got to assemble, they've got to get the kings of the earth ready. They've got to get them to the valley of Jezreel, right? So in this campaign, they're sending out these demons as unclean spirits to deceive the people, to get them to go to battle. And then they gather. And this is going to include the 10 kings, okay? And some interesting things that happen here too that we got to really think about, because this map is going to break down some information that I think is super important. One of the things that happens in this assembling, so I'm going back and forth between these notes here. The river, the gathering together, right? The assembling of the allies. This is the sixth bowl. The first thing that they do is what?
Go after Babylon.
They go after Babylon. They destroy Babylon. So this is the seventh bowl. When they go after Babylon, this is the seventh bowl.
After the assembly, they go after Babylon.
They go after Babylon. These 10 kings come over here. Now, it's pretty interesting because in Jerusalem, who's ruling in Jerusalem is the false prophet. He is the spiritual leader. Who's leading in Babylon is the Antichrist. But he's not there. He's not here at this time when this happens. And the reason he's not there is because he's out looking for these guys down here. Basra is called the sheep gate. And this is where the Jews are hiding. This is where they're hiding, is right down here at Basra. Okay. So the Antichrist is looking. He's looking for them. He's trying to find them. He's trying to figure out where are they. And when this is happening, the river Euphrates dries up. The kings start to come down. They start to assemble, and they destroy Babylon. Now, you know, I've got all the references about all that. So I don't know why they do it. Okay, I don't know why they do that. I think that if you kind of look at,
They destroy Babylon.
they destroy Babylon. Babylon gets destroyed.
That destroys what's left of the world economy.
It does destroy what's left of the world economy. Because that's what we're seeing now when we look in Revelation. B-O-Z, Basra. Okay. So we get to there. So chapter 16, verse 12, and the sixth angel poured out his bowl upon the great river, the Euphrates, and its water was dried up, that the way might be prepared for the kings from the east. And I saw coming out of the mouth of the dragon and out of the mouth of the beast and the mouth of the false prophet, 3 unclean spirits like frogs. They are spirits of demons. They perform signs. They go to the kings of the whole world, all these great kingdoms, okay? And to gather them together for the war of the great day of God the Almighty. And then Jesus says, I'm coming like a thief. Blessed is he who stays awake and keeps his garment. They gather them together to a place which in Hebrew is called Armageddon. Now, that happens not immediately. As they're coming down, they're destroying Babylon. Now, he starts talking about this, and then we see, let's see in 17. All right, we're going to see verse 12, chapter 17, verse 12. Then the 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings who have not yet received a kingdom, but they receive authority as kings with the beast for 1 hour. This is what's happening at this point.
And where were you reading that?
Revelation chapter 17, verse 12. These have one purpose, and they give their power and authority to the beast. These will wage war against the Lamb, and the Lamb will overcome them, because he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and those who are with him are called the chosen and faithful. All right, so we see that this picture going on. Okay, now, verse 15, and he said to me, this is the angel speaking to John, the waters which you saw where the harlot sits are peoples and multitudes and the nations and tongues. That's all men of the world. And the 10 horns which you saw in the beast, these will hate the harlot and will make her desolate and naked and will eat her flesh and will burn her up in fire. That's what's going to happen first. They're going to go over there and they're going to destroy Babylon. For God put it in their hearts to execute his purpose by having a common purpose and by giving their kingdom to the beast until the words of God should be fulfilled. All right, and the woman whom you saw is the great city which reigns over the kings of the earth. So what they're doing is they are destroying. I want to make sure I haven't missed something. They're going to be destroying Babylon. And it's because God has told them to do that. Now, when you see that, that is talked about in chapter 18. Okay? We can go all the way down to verse 21. And the strong angel took up a stone like a great millstone and threw it into the sea, saying, thus will Babylon, the great city, be thrown down with violence and will not be found any longer. And then goes this whole list of all these things that you won't find in her anymore. And so that's what's going on there. And it's happening because that's the plan that God has for this entire process. The important thing about Armageddon, it is not one event. It is like 7 or 8 different things that are happening, and they're all happening kind of simultaneously. So the destruction is at the 7th bowl. Let's see, make sure I've got that. Assembling of the Antichrist. Okay, the 10 King Federation. The destruction of Babylon. So what happens is they destroy Babylon, and then they hightail it over here to Jerusalem. And here's the interesting thing is that the Antichrist, he hears that this is going on, and wherever he is, I think he's somewhere down here. He heads up there too. He's gonna meet him wherever he is. So he finds out his city's been destroyed. He moves against Jerusalem, and I have all the references to that. The Jews put up a big defense, but what happens? They fall. The Jews that live in Jerusalem are going to fall. Okay? And the remnant flees to the mountains. Here are the mountains, okay? There's these mountains here. And the remnant are they're gonna leave Jerusalem and they're gonna hightail it over here, the Jews. And the armies are gonna move against the Jews in Basra. And then the second coming. So Christ somehow comes down here. This is where he initially comes down. He does not come down at the Mount of Olives. That's the last place he goes to. So, so I need to write that. Let me write this down so I make sure. Destruction of Babylon, the fall of Jerusalem. Now, why does Jerusalem have to fall? Why do you think that had to happen? I know it's like trick questions or something. Isn't it? Any idea?
Well, is it all part of their punishment? Because they rejected Jesus?
Yeah, any Jew that's left in Jerusalem, what would they have had to have done?
Taking the mark.
Taken the mark. They realize at this point, they're in big trouble, right? Because the Antichrist and the 10 kings are coming over here to Jerusalem, and they're going to wipe out the Jews. Why are they going to do that at that point? They can't find the ones who are hidden. So they're gonna go after the easy mark, the ones that are there, the ones who think that if they just take the mark, they'll be okay. What is the other thing that's gonna happen with Jerusalem in the very end? It's gonna be a new Jerusalem. That Jerusalem that stands, it's not the original, that's not the temple. The temple
So they
comes down.
completely destroyed Jerusalem,
I think it's pretty destroyed.
kind of like they did with Mariupol.
Yeah. But here's the thing, the difference is that it says Babylon will be no more. Babylon will be destroyed and never come back
And never inhabited again.
and never inhabited again. It will be destroyed. Okay, but Jerusalem is going to come down from heaven and be the ruling place for this 1,000-year reign. This is at Jerusalem where everybody will come, and I gotta find it because I looked up and I got a really great chart that shows what the millennial Jerusalem would look like. And I have it, I just have to find it. I just somewhere in my massive, you just have no idea how many megabytes of Revelation stuff is in my computer. Oh my goodness. All right. So we have the fall of Jerusalem. And this is when the Jews who did not flee are destroyed. And boy, we see that in Zechariah. Let's look at. So we see that Zechariah 12:1-3. The burden of the word of the Lord concerning Israel. Thus declares the Lord who stretches out the heavens, lays the foundation of the earth, and forms the spirit of man within him. Behold, I'm going to make Jerusalem a cup that causes reeling to all the peoples around. And when the siege is against Jerusalem, it will also be against Judah. It will come about in that day that I will make Jerusalem a heavy stone for all the peoples. All who lift it will be severely injured, and all the nations of the earth will be gathered against it. And then we see 14. 1-9, he says, behold, the day is coming for the Lord when the spoil taken from you will be divided among you. For I will gather all the nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city will be captured, and the houses plundered, and the women ravished, and half the city exiled, but the rest of the people will not be cut off from the city. Now, this is talking about this group down here, okay? So this is when he starts talking about the Mount of Olives. Then the Lord will go forth and fight against those nations as when he fights on a day of battle. In that day, his people stand on the Mount of Olives, which is in front of Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives will be split in its middle from east to west by a very large valley, so that half of the mountain will move towards the north and the other half towards the south. You will flee by the valley of my mountains, for the valley of the mountains will reach to Aziel. Yes, you will flee just as you fled before the earthquake in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah. That is so interesting. Then the Lord my God will come, and all the holy ones with him. In that day there will be no light, the luminaries will dwindle, for it will be a unique day which is known to the Lord, neither day nor night, but it will come about that at evening time there will be light. And in that day, living waters will flow out of Jerusalem, half of them towards the eastern sea, the other half towards the western sea. It will be in summer as well as in winter. And the Lord will be king over all the earth in that day. The Lord will be the only one, and his name the only one. So he starts that this is all talking about this event, the fall of Jerusalem, and then of course the restoration of Jerusalem. It will be restored. So they're going to put up a defense, but they're going to fall. And then we have the armies of Antichrist at Basra. So then the armies go to Basra. Now, I'm going to say over here, who do I think is at Basra? Is the 144,000 are going to be there, right? And they're going to be speaking. These guys are going to be trying to figure out, they're the ones who wanted the temple built. They recognize, man, we shouldn't have done that. This is bad. They find out only when the Antichrist, what does he do? In the middle of 3.5 years, he walks in and declares himself to be God. They take off. They run to Basra. And they're hidden there. That's in Revelation chapter 12. They're hidden there from the enemy.
How do you hide 144,000 people?
Yeah,
Well, it's going to be more than that.
In this day and age?
This 144,000 is going to be, well, you know, Basra, apparently it's it's just going to be a miraculous supernatural thing. I mean, that's the
Well,
only.
God is hiding them. That's the only.
God, that's the only reason they can't be found is because God is not allowing it. And why isn't God allowing that?
because he has to keep them.
The remnant.
Because there is a remnant. And so what would that say to us about who God is?
God is who he says he is. God can do what he says he'll do.
And his plan will always be realized.
His plan is always going to be fulfilled. And where do we stand with the Lord? What about our relationship with him?
Well, I am who God says I am. I am a child of God.
And he is faithful to do what?
To say,
To save me. Now, I'm not saying this is no excuse for I get to do whatever I want to do. That's not what happened here, right?
well, if you're a true child of God, you're not doing what you want to do anyway. You are,
Exactly.
I mean, that's the old you.
Right.
The new you wants to follow Christ.
And the thing is that why do we get fearful? What makes us fearful of circumstances? Look at what's going on in our world today. Why do we have fear?
I think it has to do with our faith. I think it's a lack of faith. We get afraid.
Trust.
Yeah.
And you know, yesterday at church, my pastor was teaching on this, and when I was writing my notes, it was in the 1 Peter chapter 5. 1 Peter chapter 5, I'll get it right. And it was talking about, why are you afraid? Don't be afraid. You know, and what are the 3, and I had to write 4 things that I'm fearful about. And they're related to, you know, am I going to be able to retire? Are my children going to be saved? You know, things like that. So one of the great things about this message regarding Armageddon is that God is faithful. He is going to make sure that his people are seeing through the whole thing, and that he is going to judge. So what do we do with that information? What do we do about it? What does that say to us about how we are to approach the circumstances that we live in? Is that too long of a question?
Well, we need to trust God that he will care for us.
Okay, so what are some action things that we can think of that helps us to trust him? I mean, we should not just say it. Let me think about in what ways am I not trusting God?
Right.
And how do I do that? How do I do that?
I think worry is a big, I don't know if that's the answer, but worry is a big problem.
It is a big problem.
We are, I think we kind of are born worrying from the beginning. And
No, I think we are born. I think
Some people are.
we just, we worry about things. And I just had this picture in my head of, it's like we're on a ship, a boat. And there's the destination, but around us, there's a storm. And there's sharks, and there's evil all around us. And we tend to take our eyes off of that destination and wonder what we're going to do about all this around us. Does that make sense?
That is exactly right. We need to focus on the outcome, the destination,
Not the
not the
circumstances.
circumstances, because what is it that we know about our circumstances?
Temporary.
They're temporary.
There will change.
And do we believe that God is going to really take care of us? Because where are we living right now? I mean, even 5 years ago, what do you think the anxiety factor is between now and 5 years ago?
Oh, it's huge. 5 years ago, our
Oh, yeah.
economy was good. Everybody was working and had income. There wasn't a pandemic that scared everybody half to death, that they were all gonna die right away of this terrible disease. We had a different president, different laws, you know, so many things have changed in a 5-year period.
Kind of
That-
crazy how much has changed.
We have no control.
Yeah.
Or we feel like we have no control. And I keep going back to the Sermon on the Mount, you know, consider the birds, consider the lilies of the field, you
Yeah.
know. Why do you
Why do you
worry?
toil over
Because
things?
your God loves you so much more than he loves these, you know. So, but still, we
So, because the value.
grab hold of that little thing and worry about it.
Right, the value of the study of Revelation needs to not be in just, I mean, the knowledge, I love the knowledge, I love to know. But the value of it is to help me know what am I really focusing on. I do think we need to know how to answer people when they ask questions. We need to be able to be confident in what we're saying and feel like we know why we're saying what we say. When those questions, because you think that there's going to be more questions or less questions as things get worse.
More.
So what is our job? What are we supposed to be doing?
Focus is the thing that keeps coming to my mind when because when I'm in the middle of the worry, in the middle of, you know, my little war and my little battles that I fight. That word comes to mind all the time. Focus on Jesus is always right and good.
Yeah.
And I put that in a family email one day. Somebody had put something on there about all the stuff.
Craziness. Mhm.
All the stuff. And I said, focus on Jesus. It's always right and good.
That's right.
And Cathy, I think gathering with Christians is so important right now. You can get caught up in what's happening in the world, the bad things that are happening. That's right. But we need to be surrounding ourselves, putting ourselves together. Christian people. Right? Does that make sense? I can't imagine walking through this world without Christian people around me. It is wonderful. Praise the Lord.
Amen.
And
Thank you, Lord.
And the thing is that it is also, it isn't just having Christian, that's the big thing. But it's also, how do we interact with one another? How do we treat each other in our relationship? You know, I think that as things get more difficult, what are we gonna have to be doing more of?
Have to go to our knees more.
Right.
We do.
But we have to remind ourselves that we're supposed to be salt and light. And you know, if your salt is no good, it's just to be thrown out. You know, so
You're not gonna
if
savor
you know
anything.
savor, you know, you need to be that person's that other people want to talk to be around. You don't want to turn people away. So
Right.
you want to be that savory. You want
So how do we change? So one of the things that I feel, and I really feel personally pretty strong about, there's been some things that have been happening in some of my other ministry. I can clearly see the enemy. He's trying to take some stuff down. So what's the number one area that the enemy fights with us? It's different for all of us. So I'm not expecting a particular answer, but I think there is one area that we all know where we are the most vulnerable.
Questioning ourselves.
Okay, questioning
Our
ourselves,
families.
families.
Families,
where
yeah.
your heart is, that's where your treasure is.
Where your high point
Where
is.
is your heart?
Where your high point is, he will attack that.
So if you know that that's true, that the thing that you're the most passionate about, or whatever it is that where you have really invested yourself, then what should we expect?
To be attacked.
Warfare.
To be attacked, yeah.
To be attacked?
I think the more that you're working for the Lord and the more you're trying to please him and serve him and everything, the more Satan's going to attack you. I mean, he's just going to, if you're not doing anything, he's going to leave you alone.
That's right. So
So I think it's a good thing if he's attacking you because that means you're
it's
doing what-
unpleasant, but it's not
Yeah.
bad.
But it's a good thing.
It's just, what does that help us to be able to do when we are attacked? What does the attack of the enemy do for us?
Strength us.
Okay, how?
Grows your faith and your trust.
Strengthens your faith.
Okay, and so our faith
Put
gets
your
strengthened.
trust, pray more.
Yeah.
Be more faithful in your service, you know,
Right.
and like being around other Christians. I mean, the more I'm around worldly people,
Yeah.
the less I'm serving God, I feel like, you
Right.
know. I mean, not that we shouldn't be
Right,
around the unsaved but we need to set an example to them.
so we're not to be of the world,
You have to be in the world, but
we're
not
not
of the world.
we're in it.
Yeah.
So if we think about,
It's hard to balance that.
it is hard to balance that. It's very hard to balance that. I can't even tell you, you know. If you work in a salon like I do,
Yeah.
oh boy, lots of challenge, lots and lots of challenge. Okay, it's good to think about that. It's good to talk about what's the reason that we're doing all the things that we're doing. So let me change the color here so I can get us down. So then everybody comes here, Jesus comes here, and everyone else, all of these armies are now heading here. They're all coming because they want to get those Jews. Okay. So the armies are at Basra, and then we see Christ returns.
So Basra and Petra are the same place.
Yes, they are the same place. It's the second coming. And man, I tell you, this is an area where I think, let's see, where this right here, these two events, I think, happening simultaneously. Because when Christ returns, Israel bows the knee. They get saved. All of Israel is saved. When it talks about all of Israel is saved, that's what they're talking about. It's the confessing of their national sin, their rejection of Jesus, the crucifixion of him, all of this. And I have a bunch of references to that. If you want to look that up, it's really worthwhile looking at that. But they see Jesus, he comes, and Israel is saved, okay? So this is where we get to now. They're going from the national regeneration of Israel. And so this 144,000, I don't know if these Jews have been throughout the area. I think that after the 3.5 years, after when this second 3.5 years happens, that's where I think they go, as they go to start teaching the Jews about Jesus. But they are the only, and look, it's to me, they get the opportunity to see Jesus in his glorified state. When we read the description of what Jesus looks like, and he comes down from heaven, they're going to see him face to face. They're going to fall on their face, right? And they're able to do that for a couple of reasons. One of them is no mark. There's no mark. So although they have not believed up until that moment, when they see him, they are able to fall on their face before him and get saved. This is a unique thing.
Okay, the 144,000 are the ones that fleed
I think they flew down to,
from Jerusalem down to Basra to hide.
I think them, and
And
hopefully
they didn't take the mark.
they didn't take the mark.
Yeah.
There, and what do we know about the 144,000 that have the symbol of God on them? Can they be harmed?
No.
They can't be killed. They can't be harmed.
So is it only gonna be 144,000 that flee to Basra?
Oh,
Or is it gonna
there's,
be them
in-
and a bunch of other
in
people?
this point right here, in midpoint,
Uh-huh,
Jews leave Jerusalem and go
Right.
to Basra.
yeah,
So I don't know how many leave and go there,
yeah.
but we do know it's a remnant. How many Jews?
We know it's gonna be 144,000,
We
but
know at
maybe
least-
more.
Oh, yeah, many more than that, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah,
Okay,
There will
so,
be some that realized.
oh,
hey,
yeah.
We gotta get on the boat here.
yeah, that when the guys that built the temple here, and then they get to this midpoint, the Antichrist walks in and declares himself to be God. This is not how it is meant to be in Scripture. And so that's when they're freaking out, because remember, up here in this first 3.5 years, in the 7th chapter, that's when the 144,000 are sealed at that point.
So I guess they have a special calling on their lives,
They're,
whatever.
yeah, because what is it that we understand is that when this rapture occurs, all that are left on the earth, right? Because the church is taken, anyone who
Mhm.
believes is taken. So there's that moment that we have people on the earth, right,
Right.
who do not believe.
Nobody believes.
Right. So we know that right here, these two witnesses, all of this stuff, we're gonna make a little list. The two witnesses. These are Jews. I think they were devout Jews who believe, right? God calls them. They stand in front of the construction site of the temple and declare, don't do it. Then we have the 144,000. These are Jews who are on the earth, and they have not been with a woman. They follow Jesus. So they get saved. These are people who get saved right after the rapture. That's the only way that works, because you don't have, if the rapture is correct, and you have all those who believe in Jesus, right, are taken.
So do you think the 144,000 come to their calling because of the two witnesses?
Because of the rapture.
Because of the rapture?
I think so. I think the two witnesses These are all Jews
Yeah,
who are devout. I think they're devout Jews.
right.
They would not be able to even think about any of this
I
kind
mean,
of
because
stuff.
there's a lot of Jews that are like not devout, they're not religious at all.
At all.
I mean, I would have to say there's a pretty high percentage of Jews that are not religious at all, that don't even.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And if you go back and you look at Revelation, let's see, is it 14? All right, so this is what's going to talk about verse 4. These are the ones who have not been defiled with women, but have kept themselves chaste. These are the ones who follow the Lamb wherever he goes. These have been purchased from among men as first fruits to God and to the Lamb. And no lie was found in their mouth. They are blameless. Talking about the 144,000. Now,
Does that mean that they're not married? They've never known a woman?
they've never known a woman.
Wow.
So they're young men.
Yeah, because that's like amongst the Jews, the priests are not required to be celibate. I mean, they can be married.
Right.
Yeah. So
Right.
they're not necessarily priests.
No, they're not necessarily priests, but they are young men
Yeah, young men,
who
but they're not rabbis or
who are
anything. like that.
devout.
Yeah, they're
I think
devout, but they're not
devout.
rabbis. They
We
might
don't,
be.
we don't know what they are as
Yeah,
far as
yeah.
their religious.
I'm just saying
preference.
that they're not necessarily rabbis. They could be just a
Right.
devout Jew.
Devout young men.
Yeah.
And they, because the thing is, you're gonna have to, you have to kind of decide. We don't know, I can't for sure say, but what I can for sure say is that the Bible says that those who are raptured over here in 1 Thessalonians and Corinthians, all who call upon the name of the Lord, right? All believers. So you're two camps. You're either a believer or you're not.
If you're sitting on the
Today.
fence, you're not.
You're not. Today it's like that. Today,
Right.
you either believe or you don't. So that means that at the point of the rapture, when everybody's taken up, there's going to be groups of people who are moralistic, devout Jews, but they don't believe in Messiah until that
Right.
happens. And then when that happens, they realize, I don't know, I'm just,
Oops.
I'm thankful that I'm in this camp and I don't have to go through with
Right.
that camp, right? Because in chapter 7, it says that they were picked out, right? So if we go to chapter 7. We see that verse 3 says, do not harm the earth or the seas or the trees until we have sealed the bondservants of our God on their foreheads. And I heard the number of those who were sealed, 144,000 from every tribe of the sons of Israel. So he gives a whole list of those people. And so that's what we're looking at, is that there are these people who are sealed. Now, we don't know where chapter 7 lays, but we do know that there are 7 seals and 7 trumpets. The 7th trumpet is the midpoint and it goes all the way to the end, which is also, then we have 7 bowls. But all of this, these 7 seals and 7 bowls, this is during the seals. So I would say the 4 horses are right here. Okay. Because that's got to be happening. The Antichrist is the first horse. So this happens right away. And then we have the rest of the seals that have to occur. The 7th seal is the first trumpet. So I would say in the first half of the first 3.5 years, that's going on. And then the 7 trumpets happen in the second half of the first 3.5 years. So 18 months and 18 months, that's how I'd say it. That's how, if it's like that. But that's why we have such we have this group of people that are living, who are Jews, who are living on the earth, and they are telling Israel, you better bow the knee. Then we get to this second 3.5 years, and the difference here in the second 3.5 years is the mark of the beast.
So the
And
mark of the beast happens after the first 3.5 years.
after the first 3.5 years, because in this first 3.5 years, this is when the temple is finished at the midpoint. That's chapter 11, 12, and 13. That's when the Antichrist walks in and says, I am God. And then the false prophet develops the mark to seal off people, to make his own group, because these guys have a special ability, right? They're not harmed by anything.
Mhm.
So people are running to him, save us, save us, save us. Oh yeah, you take this mark and you'll be saved. Right? So they take it. And that sets up the scenario. This group of people run over there to Basra because they recognize that they have made a big, huge, colossal mistake. So, is Israel bows the knee? Boy, I do have terrible handwriting. Hey, Israel bows the knee, okay? And then we have the battle. From Basra to the Valley of Jehoshaphat. Okay, this is the valley, this is the Battle of Armageddon. So Jesus. Jesus comes to over here, comes down into Basra, and he chases them back up. So Jesus and his armies, and that'll be us with them, heading back up, and they get to the Valley of Jehoshaphat. And this is overlooking the Kidron Valley, right? And this is where the Antichrist is destroyed.
So you said the battle from Basra to the Valley of Jehoshaphat?
Yeah.
That's the Battle of Armageddon.
That's the Battle of Armageddon. So the important thing to recognize here is look at all the things that have had to happen in this last event. That is all about Armageddon. All of this is Armageddon. This is showing what has to happen.
So it's actually a series of events and not
Series
just
of
one
events.
event.
It's not one event. It's a bunch of different battles, things that are happening, and this is happening quickly. So, when you think about all the things that are happening there, it's pretty intense. And then we have at the end, Mount of Olives. That is where Jesus ascends, right? In Jerusalem. He goes to the Mount of Olives, and he declares himself to be God, and we see the seventh bowl completed here. Pretty intense. So, look at my notes and see if there's anything else that I can. So you'll get this little map that has all that. And then this one, which has all my extra notes on it and stuff. I was gonna send the other one, but then I thought, well, that's kind of crazy. I think it's just repeating itself here.
What's that?
I just don't, I think this is the one where I talk about Russia a little bit in there. But this has all the information in it. Yeah. Okay. Okay,
All right.
I don't know what else to say here. Any comments?
Two ibuprofen day.
Two ibuprofen?
Two ibuprofen day.
Two ibuprofen. Okay, so the assembling is the, this assembling is during the 6th bowl, okay? And the 7th bowl is the destruction of Babylon. That would be something to, so this is the 6th bowl. And this is the 7th bowl, which is all this here. So, yeah. And some of the scriptures that talk about the blood being up to the bridle of the horse for 200 miles, that kind of stuff, that all that information is in there too. I know, it's like, so.
Very thought provoking.
This is very hard to
Blows me
teach.
away.
It's hard to teach. It's actually pretty dang hard to think about this because there's so much. I guess the thing that overwhelms me when I was making that chart, how many things are happening?
One of the things, so many people have been killed on the earth by now. So many people have been killed on the earth, and I'm thinking to myself, where do they get all these people for an army? I mean, this is amazing to me.
And what are they all doing with all these dead people? Can they bury them fast enough? Or
Probably
are they
not.
even burying them?
No, they're just piling up the bodies.
No, they're just piled up and
It's just amazing to me, to think that there's gonna be, that I guess they have to get them from everywhere, north, east, west, south, to make enough people that they think, and
Well, one of the things that we talked
people are
about,
so deceived.
the
They're so
earth,
deceived.
the earth, remember we talked about the earth, that all of the land masses
We'll be together.
Yeah,
will be one
there'll
big
be no
land mass.
ocean.
Well, eventually, there's
Yeah.
gonna be, but we're gonna have, Jerusalem will be over here. Well, if you're down here, in South America, there's gonna be a direct way
yeah.
to get anywhere that you wanna get.
So there'll be land bridges.
There'll be, because there are 4 or 6 major earthquakes that happen throughout the
Yeah.
whole thing. And I think that is God pushing everything back.
Yeah.
That is all getting, land masses are moving and things are going back.
So will there eventually not be oceans though? Right,
No,
It's almost
in the new heaven and new earth.
right. In the new heaven, new
almost-
earth, there's no ocean. That's hard to think about.
But the thing to understand, that's why the earthquakes, like, I don't know if I have that chart in here. Do I have that chart in here? That we did, when we did it in part 2, we had that chart that we filled out, that big chart. It's not the one we did. It's the big one that I gave you guys. That big chart, but one of the things, this one? Yes, no, not that one.
The only big chart I have.
Okay, yeah, you don't have. It's the big chart that we filled in that talks about the goals and all these different things. Well, in that, you needed to mark every time there was an earthquake. And when you do that, then you start to see that on the seals, trumpets, and bowls, there are major earthquakes that kind of signify. And I think each time land masses are being moved.
Will the people there know that's happening when they're there?
Will they know?
Will they be able to tell?
Yeah, I think they're
The land is
seeing,
getting bigger here. The water's going further away.
right, I think they're gonna see that. They're gonna be able to see that these things are happening.
And I think the hardest thing for me to imagine, because we talked about this a little bit, is that life is still going on.
Yeah.
I mean, there's babies being born
Right.
and people dying. And
Right.
So where am I on this whole thing? And am I aware of all of this. Do you know what I mean?
Well, if we're raptured out,
Yes.
we're raptured out. before
Am
this
I
happens.
aware then of everything that's going
Yeah.
on?
This is why I took the place with that.
Are we kind of like sitting up there watching it happen?
I
Are we
wonder,
watching
are we
it?
up there
Yeah, are we
watching it
watching
happen?
it all happen?
So I marked on here on
Like we're
this,
watching a movie or something.
A
earthquakes.
terrible movie.
That's a lot.
So we see it's the seventh, each time there's earthquakes. And then, yeah,
Oh, it's in my other book.
yeah. So that it's important to look at that and see. And I have earthquakes listed here somewhere.
But when you
Earthquakes.
think of earthquakes, you think of openings, not closings.
Well, when I took a course, oh my gosh, so many years ago on creation. And one of the things that we studied was Mount St. Helens. So in Mount St. Helens, Spirit Lake was where the volcano blew, which was very fortunate that it blew in the direction it did, which was towards the center of the country and not towards the coast, because that would have wiped a lot of people
Can
out.
I see that chart?
This chart.
Yeah, because I think I might have a picture of it.
Anyway, so there was Spirit Lake was halfway up the side of that mountain. And in 60 seconds, that lake moved and was on the other mountain. So that happened very rapidly. And that was one of the things that, that's why a lot of scientists, when they started looking at Mount St. Helens, they were so shocked at how it looked like. So, all right, I know this from my dad. My dad's a geologist guy. Taught me that that when they look at strata, when they look at different formations, and you'll see, they know trees will lay like this, and then they'll find trees like this, and then they'll find trees all kinds of crazy ways. And they're calling each of these different ages. But what happened in Mount St. Helens, here's the lake, right? The lake is here. The lake moves all the way over here, right? This, the liquefaction, which means that all the ice at the top immediately melted and flew down the side of the mountain in just minutes. So the trees at the bottom were just like this, covered. The trees above them that were on the middle part of the mountain were just like this. And then the trees at the top that came with all the rocks were like this. This all happened in minutes, not centuries, not ages. And so scientists then said, well, what the heck, man? We did not expect that that was how things were going to be. So it completely changed the way that people began to study the formation of the earth. And so that then it was much easier to see a young earth concept than an old earth concept because of the way Mount St. Helens was. So why I'm saying all of that is to say that land masses do move together. And so if you look at the earth, right, they're moving together. And if you look at a map of the world, you could actually cut out the continents and put them together and make one.
They're like a
landmass.
puzzle,
They're a puzzle.
like you're puzzled. But
So when you look in Genesis, when God divided up the earth, the people, he didn't just divide up their communication, he divided the land mass. That's the other thing that, and I don't remember, I've studied it, but I don't remember exactly where that is in scripture, but it is in Genesis when it talks about he divided, when he is old, Peleg, when he's old, it will happen. And there was a great earthquake and God divided up.
You can kind of see it from that, how it's a puzzle from that
That's a really good example of that.
map right there.
You can see how everything kind of fits in there together,
brings it all
the
together.
lakes and stuff like that, but.
and there's probably some of the puzzle that's underneath the ocean that
Mhm.
comes up.
Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
very, very interesting concept, an idea, and of course, when God divided up the land masses in this great earthquake that occurred, one of the things that happened before that was all the people that were spread out, because most likely we're talking somewhere, the plain of Shinar, which is, where's that? In Iraq, right? So it's in the Middle East over there where all this stuff happened. Well, all these people would have had to have been able to spread out to other parts of the world.
Yeah.
The division. So
Yeah, because if the oceans had been there, there would be no way that,
it would have been it
Ancient
wouldn't have
people.
happened that quickly.
no, it would have been virtually impossible for them to get from there, like over to the other side of the world.
Right, right. So the land masses and the things that were used in order to get where they were going, it's much easier to understand how that worked. Now, they've always said that China, that there was an ice bridge, because they believe the Indian people came probably
Well,
from.
look at the Bering
Asia.
Straits. There's not very much
Mhm.
water between Alaska and
Right,
Russia.
right, right. But the idea, we think of moving this way because that's what we're used to. But if you look at where the land is,
Yeah.
much easier to go that way.
Mhm.
Take a right instead of a left. So, yeah. So isn't that amazing to me that it's all going to work out in the end? God's going to put it back to one landmass in the end. And that's all happening. And the Antichrist probably thinks, oh, it's great. We can do whatever we
But
want.
we'll
to do.
still have like lakes and rivers and stuff like that, right?
I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be like. Until
So-
you have it.
The Armageddon ends the 7 years. What is the purpose of the 1,000-year reign?
Excellent question.
Yeah.
I mean, it just, if everything is said and done, why do
What's the
we
purpose?
need another 1,000 years?
Well, but everything isn't said and done.
Not everybody on earth
He's still
has a
giving them another
glorified body.
chance.
They're still human.
Well, that's one of the reasons, but Genesis chapter 12. I think we do cover this later on. I just can't remember which chapter it's in. Genesis 12 says, now the Lord said to Abram, go forth from your country and from your relatives and your father's house to the land which I will show you, and I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great. And so you shall be a blessing, and I will bless all those who bless you, and the ones who curses you I will curse, and in you all the families of the earth will be blessed. And that is because he made a covenant promise with Abram that in him all the families of the earth would be blessed, and every place he went, right? Every place that he went, that was the land that God gave him. The only time that Israel occupies 100% of the promised land is here. The only time.
The only time they occupy, what you,
100% of the promised land
okay.
is in the 1,000-year reign.
I think it's a great example of God's love for us.
That's right.
He wants to give, we're getting another chance.
If he did not fulfill that
Yeah.
promise, that covenant that he made with Abraham, what would happen to every other promise that God made,
He questioned.
It would taint it.
right? Would he be God Almighty, the perfect, complete, all-knowing God? No, he would not. That's the thing to understand about all of this that's happening here. Now, and it is also true that they're having children. So the people that walk into the promised land, into that 1,000-year reign, who's going to be the people? These guys from Basra, right?
Right.
We'll be talking about that, those who are raptured and those who are, the different groups of people. We will talk about that. But if you think about what's happening here, they're not going to be raptured in that moment.
During the 1,000-year reign, isn't it possible that people will turn back to sin?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, it
Yeah,
is.
some of them won't make the choice.
right.
Well,
Or they'll make the
There's
choice.
gonna be the initial group. So in this 1,000-year reign.
So the initial group is all gonna be saved people, but during that 1,000 years, there's gonna be people that turn away.
Right.
And there'll be people born.
Right.
Yeah, those that are born, they can make, they'll be
Yeah,
able to
long
make
time
their
to
choice.
live there, yeah.
So they'll still just live their regular lifespan because
Well, they're
they do,
gonna live a long time.
but they don't have a glorified body, so they.
They're
won't
gonna live a long
Live
time.
forever. They'll
They're not
just-
gonna live forever, but they're gonna live a long time.
So we're back to Methuselah.
Yes, but here's a question that I don't think I have a clear, and hopefully, I'm gonna do a little more research on it, but something to think about here. There's going to be people from all the nations
They come there.
that come,
Okay.
okay? That big earth with all these other remote places, not everybody.
Where is Satan during the 1,000-year reign?
He's in the pit.
He's in the pit.
So what do you mean by nations?
There are gonna be nations and people,
Are we talking about countries?
countries.
Are we using that word interchangeably? So all the nations, we mean all the countries?
There's gonna be people from different countries. We know that Egyptians will be there, right? There's different groups of people that are gonna be in that millennial reign. And that's what it is.
Will there be wars and battles going on?
None,
None, okay.
no, not
But
until.
If
the end.
Satan is in the pit, who's gonna be tempting these people and, causing people to sin and stuff? Because isn't it all Satan that's doing that to
Oh,
us?
I'm so glad you said that, because here is another reason why we have that 1,000-year reign. What does the 1,000-year reign teach men about themselves?
About what?
About themselves. What does that 1,000-year reign teach?
They still have original sin. No?
No.
They do, they're sinners, but original sin is what? What is the original sin?
Disobedience?
Disobedience.
Thank you. Can Satan make them sin?
No.
No.
Well, he can't because he's not there to do it,
He
right?
can
Could he
tempt,
make them
he
sin?
could tempt them
No,
to do
it's
it
a
like he tempted
choice.
Eve, but it was her choice.
It's their choice.
What this says to me, and I'll say it again when we get there, this shows the insidious nature of sin,
Mhm.
how pervasive it is, how deep it is. It is not originated in Satan.
Because the says we're born with a sinful nature.
Well, yes,
I mean, right?
right?
Well, children were, but Adam and Eve were created.
Created
Sinful.
without sin, but where did that sinful nature come from?
From self.
Because why? What is it that Satan tempted Eve with?
Knowledge.
Huh?
Knowledge.
Knowledge of good and evil.
Well, he tempted her with the ability to know what God knows.
To be like God.
To be like
like
God,
God.
yes,
Okay.
Okay, was Eve already like God?
yes.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
what did he tempt her with?
To be God,
A lie.
not just
A
like
lie.
God, but
He did,
To be your own God.
yeah.
Okay,
she was serving self instead of God. So
okay. So here's another question. Why did Satan approach Eve instead of Adam?
This is.
I figure
this is-
because he didn't
this
think
is a
Adam
trick
would have been so he could
and
take
answer
back.
here.
Not a sexist
He
answer.
was smarter.
No, it's not a
I-
sexist.
Why did he approach Eve and not Adam?
Because he knew Adam wanted to do anything for Eve.
Nope.
No,
Is it because she
Because
would be
she
the one
was-
that bore the children?
You're almost there.
close.
And
Family. We're getting back to the
Oh.
same thing. See, before there were children, Adam and Eve were what? Partners.
Yeah, they were their only family. They were,
They were their
the
partners. They did
family.
everything together equally, right? They both equal. God is not a respecter of persons, right?
There's no one who's greater or less than another, right? We're not given in marriage, neither do we marry in heaven, right? None of that happens, right? So Satan did something that is so important for us to understand about what he did to Adam and Eve.
What was the curse that, or what was the consequence, is a better word, for Adam and Eve?
Well, she would have painful childbirth.
And
They would work the land.
Yeah.
let's go to Genesis 3.
Her husband would be the head of her.
Okay, there you go. So
Is that what
Genesis,
happened?
Genesis 3 says,
But
I will
in-
put,
in-
verse 15, I will put enmity between you and the woman, his hidden proceed. That is talking about Satan and talking about Jesus, right? There's the first prophecy. He will bruise you on the head, you will bruise him on the heel. That's talking about the death. All right. Verse 16, the woman said, I will greatly multiply your pain in childbirth, pain for children, yet your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you. So what happened here is that now Eve has the desire to be in charge. She wants to be in charge. Now, what's the problem with that? Is it because God thinks women are weaker than men?
No,
Why does it have to be a structure?
because God is not a God of chaos and it creates order.
Okay, so family is a picture of Ephesians. Let's see, power company.
I like the way the New Living Translation put it, and you will desire to control your husband, but he will rule over you.
Right?
That's a good one.
So,
I never thought about it like that. Your desire will be for your husband. You think of that as a physical desire.
yeah.
But the New Living Translation, you desire to control him.
Exactly, because what does she think? What does she get from her falling? What is it that Satan tempted her with? You're gonna be like God.
Mhm.
I'm gonna be in charge. Ephesians 5 says, 5:22, wives, be subject to your own husbands as to the Lord, for the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ also is the head of the church, he himself being the savior of the body. But as the church is subject to Christ, so also the wife ought to be subject to her husband in everything. Why? Because this is a picture, Christ to the church, the husband to the wife. What happens when the family gets out of balance?
There's chaos. And it breaks.
Okay, because what is the problem too? Because what is the family supposed to be a picture of?
The church.
The church. So when the church gets out of function, then what happens to the witness?
It's damaged.
Loses its salt.
Exactly. So it's a very important thing to understand when Satan